Assalamu alaikum, all of you. How are you? I hope you have been enjoying your time at the university. It's a good campus, so enjoy the good weather and the pleasant weather and this campus. Okay, civil-military relations, a brief survey. We have been discussing it, and yesterday we were discussing some aspects of civilian supremacy vis-a-vis military supremacy in Pakistan, and then we discussed different ethnicities in Pakistan and its link. I would be discussing establishing its link with military supremacy in Pakistani politics. Right, this is where we finished our talk yesterday, right, our class yesterday. So in civilian supremacy, in civil military relations and the supremacy of military, what is the link of that with different ethnicities in Pakistan? So basically the link of that is that when Pakistan was faced with these kind of ethnic problems, it was natural for the civilian elite or the civilian governments to rely on military to control these issues, like the issue of ethnicity in East Pakistan. Military was used for it, though it wasn't the issue of ethnicity, it was the issue of disparity as well, right? But still military was used to discipline the Bengalis in Bangladesh, right? Same is the case with the issue of tensions in Karachi, that military or rangers, they are called to bring order, right, to order the city of Karachi, right? So that these kind of issues, when they are prevailing in the country at large, then the civilian government is dependent on the military. So this over dependence over the military has given rise to the power of military in Pakistan. This is the reason for the growing military power in Pakistani politics, right? And this is the reason that there is an imbalance between military and civilian establishments. Then another issue is the domestic terrorism in Pakistan, right? So this is also a very important issue because it is again imbalancing the relations between civilian and military establishment, right? So some analysts consider internal terrorism is a greater threat to Pakistan than India, right? Like India is not that a great threat to Pakistan as internal terrorism is, right? So about, like, if you analyze since 2001 till date, these figures are keep changing all the time, but anyhow, about 35,000 people have been killed from 2009 till date, and if you include the 2001 and till date issue, or that era, if you include that era, so the number exceeds, the number would almost be doubled then, right? And these people have been killed only through terrorism. So it means that terrorism is a big threat to Pakistan, right? And India is not that, because India did not kill 35,000 people from 2009 to 2016, but terrorism did. So actually then many terrorist and militant groups operate in Pakistan. It is an open secret, and why they operate in Pakistan? Because of the Cold War legacy. The Cold War was there, and we will be discussing these issues in detail in Pakistan role in one of the coming topics, right? So we will be discussing these issues in detail about the militant groups and why do they operate in Pakistan. But many terrorist and militant groups they operate in Pakistan. It does not mean that they operate with the sanction of the government, right? They are unlawful, but they still operate in Pakistan, right? Then there is an anti-Shiite group which is known as Sipahi Sahaba or Lashkar-e Jhangvi, and anti-Indian Lashkar-e-Taiba, right? So these are the groups which are operating in Pakistan, and again I'm saying that it does not mean that the government of Pakistan has provided them a very conducive environment to operate over here, right? It is not the case like this, but these are the facts, that these are the groups which are operating from Pakistan, not necessarily with the consent of the government of or the military establishment of Pakistan, but these groups operate, right? Then there is Haqqani network, which is of the Afghan Taliban. This Haqqani network is in Pakistan, right, in the tribal belts of Pakistan, the tribal belt of Pakistan. So it is basically anti-US group, and it is posing a serious threat to the United States of America and NATO forces over there in Afghanistan. Then we have a local brand of Taliban, unfortunately, the TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, right? So this is another terrorist group which is operating in Pakistan, which is there in Pakistan. And then the all famous, right, Al-Qaeda. Elements of Al-Qaeda are also there in Pakistan. The chief of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, was killed in Pakistan. Many Al-Qaeda operatives were killed in Pakistan over the past 1.5 decades. So Al-Qaeda is there. We will be linking it with the supremacy of military in Pakistan later on, right? But first of all, let me. Then a new brand of terrorist group, which is known as ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or it is also known as ISIL, the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, right? So this is also operating in Pakistan, and though the government of Pakistan was initially not aware, or it was denying by purpose that there is no such group operating in Pakistan, because this group emanated from Syria and Iraq, and then it spreaded to Afghanistan and to, in their terminology, to the Khorasan region, right? It spreaded in this region, and the government of Pakistan, it is quite present in very much present in Afghanistan, but the government of Pakistan denied its presence in Pakistan. We have the statements of Chaudhry Nisar, the Interior Minister of Pakistan. In the current government, we have his statements with us, basically who is denying the presence of ISIS, but then at a point he accepts that yes, there is a foothold of ISIS in Pakistan, and media has been reporting that ISIS has been distributing its pamphlets and literature in the Pashtun-dominated areas of Balochistan as well, and the Pashtun areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, right? So even particularly Peshawar. So these reports have been there in the media, and over the past couple of years, media has been reporting these kind of incidents. So ISIS is also kind of a threat to Pakistan, and that is why I have included it in the domestic terrorism, right? Which Pakistan is facing because of all these networks and militants and different kinds of militant groups with different kinds of purposes, right? Different kinds of targets. So these groups are there, and this area which the ISIS is saying Khorasan, basically it includes, you know, many parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and even I'm not sure, but I think even Iran as well, right? So if they are naming it the Khorasan chapter of ISIS, then definitely they have these nefarious designs towards us as well, because part of the Pakistani territory was part of the ancient Khorasan region. So if that Khorasan means this Khorasan means that ancient Khorasan, definitely then they are aiming for us as well, right? So this is an alarming domestic terrorism situation in Pakistan right now. Okay, and basically with this domestic terrorism, military is needed, right? Military is needed to take care of the issue of terrorism, right? Because military is an antithesis of it. Only military can handle, because these are militants. They would not be handled by the civilians. These are militants, and they are hardcore militants. In each and every group there are hardcore militants present, and some of these groups like ISIS and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and even Al-Qaeda, they have resorted to the tactics like, to the suicide bombing tactics. So they are very lethal for the very existence of Pakistan, and that is why civilians cannot deal with them. So the civilian governments usually rely on military, and it is the task of military to deal with these kind of threats, because they are militant, so military is supposed to deal with them. And when this reliance on military comes, time and time again when this reliance has come, then the thing is that then military gets power in Pakistan. These are the factors through which, because you are heavily relying on military to bring order in the country, to curb militancy in the country, and time again the government is asking military to go there, operate over there, curb that threat, curb this one, kind of this, deal this threat. So this military, this over reliance of military has given it prominence in the politics of Pakistan over civilians, right? That is why this domestic terrorism has also played a role in this imbalanced relations between civil and military establishments. What is the composition of the Pakistan Army? What is the composition of military? So Pakistan Army is mainly comprised of Punjabis and Pashtuns, right? This is basically over-representation of Punjabis and Pashtuns in the Pakistan Army, but yes, this is there, right? Army as an ethnic movement due to internal unity and coherence. Now, if you look at army, a person who is serving in army, he would not say that he's a Pashtun. He would not say that he's a Punjabi, he's a Baloch, he's a Sindhi. It operates like a unit, a coherent unit, right? Knitted together. So it operates like it. So that is why some analysts negatively or positively call it an ethnic movement, because at the one side there are civilians, and on the other side there is army. Though army is part of the same country, they are from among us, who the military officers and the sepoys, all of them, they are from among us. Some of them are our relatives as well, but they are military and we are civilian. So this, them and us, right, this basically makes a problem for both of us, right, for them and us as well. So this makes a problem for us, and that is why some people call it an ethnic movement, because of its unity. Because over there is no Pashtun, there is no Punjabi, there is no Sindhi, there is no Balochi, there is no Muhajir. There is just a person who is serving army, right, who is serving the country. So basically it is an ethnic movement considered by some. Why it is like this, right? Why it is like this, like the Pakistan Army? So because of a few reasons. Generous benefits are there for those who join the Pakistan Army. Then meritocracy is there, nepotism and favoritism, it doesn't work over there. That is why it is a strong institution, and we should, like civilians, should also learn from it, right? Like meritocracy should be there in civilian institutions as well, in order, if we want to get stronger and have our place in the polity, a due place in the polity, which we should have, right? Civilian establishment should have. So then this meritocracy should be there, right? And people are attracted to army because of the generous benefits they provide. Control over promotion turns into discipline. Now over there in army there is a proper setup, proper mechanism, and control over the promotions is there. A person who is serving, like, you know, in army, like a person from lieutenant to up till major, and then how do you promote, because then in a certain amount of time you need to an army person needs to clear some extra courses, right? And after clearing those courses, he will be eligible to move forward, lieutenant colonel and colonel, and you know. So so there is a control over the promotions, right? And this kind of control is not there in the civilian establishment institutions. So that lack of control in the civilian establishment institution or civilian establishment, right, makes it weak against the army, and that's why army comes out as successful, a very strong candidate for ruling the country in Pakistan because of these reasons. And if you analyze these reasons, all of them are missing in the civilian establishment, right? Then in army there is another culture which is known as the compliance, the culture of compliance, right? So that's they would have to comply with the command of their immediate boss, but in civilian in the civil bureaucracy or the civil establishment, right, this thing is not there. This compliance is not there in the same kind of form in which it is existing in the military institutions. So it gives them an edge because they work in coherence, and it makes them strong. It makes it strong. The military establishment that is why it is strong. Then the culture of military superiority over politicians. Another thing is that military in Pakistan, that culture has been developed over the years, over decades, that military is superior over politicians, and there are many factors for that culture. Some of them we have discussed over here in these in this course over different under different topics, even under this one as well. But some of them are that, you know, the incompetency of politicians. Some of them, if I need to substitute this argument, the incompetency of politicians is one of the most important factors in this in establishing the superiority of military over the politicians, because these incompetent politicians, when they come into power, they do not perform their job. They need to run the country according to the way it is supposed to be run, to give proper social rights and privileges to the people, and to move the economy of the country forward. But what happens is that whenever the politicians, the civilian politicians come, the economy of the country, you just analyze this trajectory, right? You might challenge me, but you just analyze this trajectory, that the economy of the country gets a shock whenever there is a civilian government. You know, the economy of the country goes down. There's a downward trend, very visible downward trend in the economy of the country under civilian control. And whenever there is a military dictator, then we see that even if it is a bubble growth of the economy, but that growth is visible during that dictatorship, or so these are some of the weaknesses of our politicians, which are basically helping the military to keep its superior position over them, right? So this culture has been developed over the past, let's say 70 or 71 years, and it will take time to bring a balance in the civil-military relations, and this balance will only be struck if the civilian establishment performs its task, right, its duties diligently. Only then this balance can be struck. Otherwise, this balance will not be struck. Okay, then weak state. So Pakistan is a weak state, right? The state cannot provide for the economic or physical security of over 200 million citizens. Like, you know, the latest census, it would tell us how much the actual population of Pakistan is, but approximately 200 million people are living in Pakistan. So basically 200 citizens, so it is, the state is weak. It cannot provide for the economic and physical security of 200 million people, right? About 60% people live under poverty, 22% live in extreme poverty, and 56% literacy is the rate of literacy in the country. So low human development index and then low global competitiveness, they are kind of some of the factors which are not allowing the state of Pakistan to grow economically, right? Because we are not a competitive economy. Our manpower is not skilled. It is a burden on the resources of the country. The manpower of Pakistan is kind of a burden on the resources of a country, right? And it is not skilled, so we are not competitive globally, and our economy is weak, and the state is weak. So when this weak state is there, we cannot fix our problems. We always have to rely on someone else to fix our problem because the state is weak. So in the process of this over-reliance on others, military as an institution also comes to the rescue of the state time and time again, right? And that is why, or the rescue of the politicians, or the rescue of even civilian institutions at time, right? So that's why that the military is strong in Pakistan and the state is weak in Pakistan, right? Or the civilian institutions are weak in Pakistan because of this weak nature of the state of Pakistan. Then corruption, again this is a very alarming situation in Pakistan, that corruption, it is systemic, right? It has affected and it is affecting every person in the country, like from Prime Minister to the President, including the current ones, right? Like one of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the current Prime Minister, the previous Prime Minister of Pakistan, before Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, he has been disqualified on the charges or the allegations of corruption, right? And the President, if you analyze the President of Pakistan, the previous President of Pakistan, Asif Ali Zardari, so there are many allegations against him of corruption, though none of them has been proved up till now, but allegations are there, and people at large think that he was involved in corrupt practices while he was president as well, and before that, right, when he was a minister in the 90s. So this is the state of affairs in Pakistan. So this corruption is systemic and it is affecting everyone. Those who are in the government, those who are in the leading position, those who are on holding some portfolios, holding some government position, like in different departments. So they are affected by this corruption because it is systemic. It is in the it flows in the economic vessels, like economy is, it flows in the vessels of the body of the state, right? Like as blood flows in the veins of a person, same is the case with the economy, that economy flows in the veins of a state to keep it alive and keep it running. But this flow has been, I would say, infected by corruption, right? Like the blood of the state has been infected by corruption. So it is everywhere now. Everywhere there is a leakage in the economy, and people are involved in under the table deals everywhere from top to bottom, right? So this is very alarming situation, and in order to because these ideals, they are high ideals. If we are asking that civilian supremacy should be there in the country, then we should also be asking for a system of checks and balances over these civilians. We should also be implementing a system where corruption is minimized. It cannot be altogether eliminated. I must admit, it is very difficult to say that corruption has been 100% eliminated, but it can be reduced. It can be reduced up to 20%, 15%, right? Something like this. It cannot be altogether eliminated. So this system should be there if we want civilian supremacy in Pakistan. Then this checks and balances, mechanisms for corruption, as I was discussing in one of the previous classes, that these checks and balances should be there in the system, so that corruption can be arrested, the growth of corruption can be arrested, right? So then we will be able to say that now we are, since you can see that we are no more corrupt like the civilian institutions or civil establishment, so then they would say that, okay, now you see that we are no more corrupt, we have arrested the growth of corruption, so now we will assert ourselves, right, because we are pious and we have every right to rule this country. So then that civilian establishment will be in that position to I would say balance the military establishment in the affairs of the state. Otherwise, this imbalance will always be there. As I have explained in the previous slide, that military as an institution is a very disciplined institution, and it is very hard for anyone in the military to get away with malpractices or corrupt practices, but it is very easy for anyone in the civilian institution or the civilian establishment to get away with it, you know. So that is why these kind of things, and that is why when that military is less corrupt than the civilian establishment, then definitely military has a greater role to play in. It will definitely play a greater role, because then it will present itself that, see, I am less corrupt, right? But if the civilians can come up with something, with a model which can show the military establishment that yes, civilian can handle this the state of affair in an effective manner, then it will be easy for the military to accept and give way to the civilian establishment to manage the affairs of the country the way civilian establishment wants to manage it, right? Then unstable constitutional history in Pakistan is also a very important aspect which has weakened civilian establishment against the military establishment in Pakistan. Now this unstable constitution history, in this you can include the initial, you might say the initial 5 or the initial 9 years in which the constitution was delayed, right? And then when that constitution was given to the country, then what happened at that time, that it was abrogated in 1958 again, and then a military dictator came, as I have discussed that in detail in the previous classes, that the military dictator gave his own constitution, right? So this basically, this constitutional history, this unstable constitutional history, that we could not stick with one constitution, and we were always experimenting, either whether this constitution would suit, this system would suit our needs, or that system would suit our needs. So this is what we have been doing. So this was kind of, though it was experimentation, but it was creating an unstable situation in the country as well, right? So the constitutional history of Pakistan is quite unstable. Then after, like 1962 constitution, when it was finally abrogated, and then martial law was imposed, and then a new constitution was given, 73. So even that 73 constitution, we have been meddling with it, right? We have been meddling with that 1973 constitution. In 1985, as I have discussed, that General Zia gave his mini constitution, like, which is known as the 8th amendment in the 1973 constitution, given in 1985. And then again we were meddling with that in the 1990s. We were rolling back some of the clauses of the 8th amendment under the 13th amendment, and then in 2002 or 3 under the 17th amendment we were again meddling with it, right? And it was, if you analyze all these clauses in the constitution, right, why is General Zia was giving the 8th amendment in the constitution? Because he wanted to become powerful, as the 1973 constitution has up to a large extent ensured that there should be a civilian supremacy in the country. But then General Zia wanted to get power and draw his power from the constitution, but the constitution was not giving him this power. So he just made these changes in the constitution in the 8th, under the 8th amendment, right, to become more powerful. Mia Muhammad Nawaz Sharif in the 1997, when he came with a 2/3 majority and formulated his government, then he wrested some of the power from the president, from the office of the president, and like the dissolution, the assembly dissolution power, the dissolution syndrome, right? So they were struck by it, and he wanted to repeal that thing, and he did that. Then again, General Pervez Musharraf, in order to gain some power under the 17th amendment, then he again snatched some of, though not like the 58 to be in its original form, but he snatched some of the powers for the office of the president, and he was a president, so definitely he wanted to have these powers. So you can see this wrangling. And then under the Pakistan People's Party government, the 18th amendment, which I think is a very good amendment in the constitution, if the Pakistan People's Party government 2008 to 2013 be remembered for something which is good apart from corruption, which normally people say that the ministers and everybody was kind of involved in corrupt practices. But if the Pakistan People Party in history in the 2008 to 2013 term be remembered in history in good words, that would be and I would give credit of this to the President Asif Ali Zardari of that time, that he gave this 18th amendment to the nation, right? Devolved powers from the center to the provinces, to the units, right? This devolution of power, the power, the provinces were made very much powerful under that. Many subjects were transferred to the provinces, and then again, though it could not be materialized, but this wrangling is there, right? And the wrangling is that a few months back, this Bajwa doctrine, people have been talking, the newspapers were filled with this criticism or appreciation of the Bajwa doctrine, and it is said that it was said at that time, though the military has denied that thing, and it is not going to happen according to my knowledge, based on reading the newspapers or listening to the news and the analysts. So it is not going to happen. But it was voices were raised that the military is not in favor of the 18th amendment, and it wants to it wants the government, the government of PMLN, to make some laws, to some constitutional amendment to repeal this or roll back the 18th amendment. But it is not going to happen. It was just in the newspaper. But you can, the point which I am trying to make over here is that if you analyze all these things, it is kind of wrangling, and it is an unstable constitutional history of Pakistan, which we can see till date, right, that the wrangling is there. We are always experimenting. A military dictator would try to snatch power from the civilians, and when civilians will get an opportunity, they will try to. So this is an unstable history, right? And this unstable history has helped the military establishment in a greater way. It has been quite helpful for them to have control of the civilian institutions and have supremacy over the civilian establishment in the country, right? So this this thing is very this has helped this in creating this imbalance between civil and military bureaucracy, or civil or military establishment. Then the electoral cycle, right? It is also very important that electoral cycles in the country, they were not consistent. Though we are seeing elections regularly held after 2002 up till date, right? Elections are regularly held after every 5 years, and I hope in 2018 election will be held, general election will be held. But before that, elections were, the electoral cycle, they were never consistent. There would be either a span of more than like 5 years or 10 years between two elections, as we saw initially in the 1950s case, or there would be a span of less than 5 years, like 2 or 3 years, as we have seen in the 1990s, right? So this cycle was not consistent. Then, so it has also left a vacuum for the military to come and fill that vacuum, right? So then military is seen as antithesis of civilian politicians. Again, this approach, this attitude, this should be shunned, right? I think this is something which has been quite detrimental for the politics in Pakistan. That military is always seen as antithesis of civilian politicians. Because military, as I have already discussed in this class, that military is from among us, right? Military is here because, and we respect military, the civilian respect military because it is from among us. It is our own military, right? Our brothers, our sons, our sisters, and our family members, one member or the other member in each and every family, a distant relative, but they are basically people we know, right? And they are never antithesis of civilian politicians. The civilian politicians saw, they see them as their antithesis because they think that the military has taken control of everything. These politicians do not feel free to operate, to act the way they want to act somehow, right? So that is why this military is seen as antithesis. But the other side of the picture is that it should not always be a zero-sum game. It can be a win-win situation for both of them, right? If the politicians consider them against them, the military consider the politician against them, the military establishment, right? So the politicians should take good care of the military needs, of the military establishment, right? Like the defense needs and of the country and everything, because the politicians, they do not get this thing. They do not understand the defense needs of the country. Only military, which is an organized institution made for this purpose, can have a better insight about the defense needs of the country. So if the politician accept this defense needs of the country and give proper give them their due, the military their due, right? The military would automatically accept the supremacy of politicians, right, over the issues in which the military doesn't know things, but the politicians know better than the military. So it should be a win-win situation should be created in the country. Every person, every institution in this country has a role to play, and no institution is useless in Pakistan, right? In any country. So if this point is understood by the military and the politicians both at the same time, then they would come close to each other, they would work in collaboration with each other. And this collaboration is what we need, because without this collaborations, just imagine the military is controlling the borders of the country, the integrity of the country, the territory of the country, right? It is ensuring that this country remains free from any outside attack. And within that shell which the military is trying to create, or which the role of the military is to create, right? Within that shell, these politicians and the civilians and they find an opportunity to flourish, to thrive, right? So this role of military is really important, and it is important for any country. No, Pakistan is not an exception. It is across the board for all countries in the world. This role of military is very important. So the politicians in their criticism over military should not forget this point. On the other hand, the military, when they try to meddle in the political affairs of the country, they should not forget that their due role is over there on the borders. They are there for their role. If they just somehow forget about their due role, they would be looked not in they will be looked upon not in a good manner, right? People would start hating them. The politicians would start hating them then, right? So the military should also not meddle in those affairs which are particularly the domain of the civilian government, right? So the military should also realize this aspect of their meddling, that their meddling basically creates kind of problems for the civilians, kind of problems for the politicians as well. And the politicians, on the other hand, when they face some kind of such kind of problems, they should not forget that basically this is our own military and we should not be over criticizing the military, right? So that a win-win situation is created in the country, and these are two wheels, I would say, two wheels of the same vehicle. They should go hand in hand, otherwise there would be no balance and the vehicle would crash. Okay, then Pakistan Army has entrenched itself into the state. Right now this is the military institutionalization. So it has entrenched itself into the state, right? And because of its multifaceted roles, not only defense, but many other roles which it has been playing, which it is expected to play. Then, but negative thing is that it has suspended, then rewrote the constitutions to favor itself, as I have already discussed a few minutes ago, right? Then giving the president, not prime minister, control of the executive, like in the 1962 constitution, it gave the president, not the executive, not the prime minister, as the control of the executive of the country. So that was a presidential in some of the previous classes. I have discussed the difference between parliamentary and presidential system. So that we are talking about the 1962 constitution over here, in which there was a presidential form of government, and it was given by a military dictator. So that is what I'm trying to make a point over here, right? I'm trying to make this point over here. Then it controls large part of the economy, right? I will come to this point. Intelligence and defense services, right? And overrepresented in the government. Now this is unfortunate that it is overrepresented in the government, but it is also, it has its roots in the history as well. It controls a large part of the economy, like more than 50% of the defense budget, if I'm not mistaken. I remember talking to some of the military men, and they were denying that it is not even 50%, though exaggerated figures are given in the newspapers analysis, and in a layman's terminology, if you would have heard a lot of people saying that 85% of the budget is given to the military. Actually, some of the military men, they have expressed their views in media and at different forums that it is not more than 35% according to them, right? But let's take let's do not take both these stances like 85 and 35, but let's say it's 50%, right? And then intelligence, and then the defense services and overrepresentation represented in the government. So defense services, it is the purview of the military. It should control it. The intelligence, it is again the domain of the military. It should control it. Economy, if like it is the demand of the situation, then the budget of the military should be increased. If it is the demand of the situation, then the budget of the military should be curtailed up to some extent, right? And that budget should be invested in education, in health, and other sectors as well, right? And this thing is a bit negative, that why it is overrepresented in the government. Maybe that is one of the irritants that the politicians are talking about. So this overrepresentation has basically made them superior than the civilian government, civilian establishment, right? Well, this thing culminated basically in 2004 in the National Security Council, which was established under President Pervez Musharraf, in fact established by him, right? So this is the article of the Constitution which talks about it, the 152A of the Pakistan Constitution. The President of Pakistan and the Prime Minister of Pakistan serve as the chairman and the vice chairman respectively, and National Security Council, right? This NSA membership also includes all major civilians and military leaders. So the creation of this National Security Council formalized the Pakistani military's input into policy making, and it is not a bad thing, I think, because there are many aspects which are hidden from the eyes of the civilian politicians. So the input of military is very much necessary in many matters, and the politicians should pay heed to these inputs, because they come from an expert who knows a lot of facts which the politicians do not know, because they do not serve on borders. They haven't struggled, they haven't served on borders, they haven't served in the intelligence agencies, so they do not know about a lot of facts. So that is why their input is required, right, on different issues in which the politicians do not know and the military knows more than the politicians. So this input is there, right? But if you see this whole thing in its entirety or in its totality, so this is basically the over-representation of military in the government, and this NSC has kind of again created an imbalance in favor of the military establishment vis-a-vis civilian establishment, right? Okay, so if we want to conclude, we would conclude it in this manner, that Pakistan inherited a well-established tradition of supremacy of civil political over military institutions under the British political theory, right? This is what Pakistan got, because we have a Westminster democracy and we are following the British model. So under their political theory, we got this supremacy of civilian political institutions over military institution, right? Within a few years of independence, now if you want to sum it up, right, that why there is an imbalance and what happened. We have discussed all these things, but now just summing it up. Within a few years of her independence, Pakistan encountered the ever-growing influence of military into politics, right? Like after the death of Liaquat Ali Khan and Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jan and Liaquat Ali Khan, then we saw that, you know, the office of the Governor General, it was filled by bureaucrats and civil and military bureaucrats, and you know, it was a place which we discussed, that it was a place of intrigues against politicians and the prime ministers, and the prime ministers were never allowed to play their due role, and so the influence of military was there. Within a few years it happened, right? Then ultimately, unlike India, Pakistan degenerated into a Praetorian state, right? With dreadful political, social and economic fallout. So Pakistan basically degenerated into a state where their might is right. This is what we need by Praetorian state, right? So where their might is right. It was a kind of a state. Pakistan degenerated into this kind of a state, and military had the might, and that is why it was right, right? And then we saw the economic fallouts for it, the social and the political fallouts for it. The social fallout for it is that civilians are underdeveloped, the society is underdeveloped, the military cantonments are much more developed, right? The political fallout is that the civilian politicians are underdeveloped, though their own fault is also there in this aspect, but yeah, they are underdeveloped, and the military leadership is more developed, more informed, right? And the economic fallout is that the economy of Pakistan could not flourish, right? You just see the Indian rupee and then you see the Pakistani rupee, and you will find out that what is happening with the Pakistani rupee and why the economy of Pakistan is not flourishing. So the root causes of this is that the rest of the institutions were ignored, and only military was given importance in many issues, in many aspects, and then military established, military developed, but the rest of the institutions they could not develop, and that is why the economy at large is not does not present a good picture, right? The economy is weak. We are a weak economy. This process of militarization of Pakistan owes its transformation to multiple variables, as have been discussed, which we discussed during these few classes, right? No single factor can be cited as the sole cause. Rather, a cluster of causes led to the intervention of military into politics in Pakistan. So whatever, whatever causes we have discussed over here, not a single cause can be discussed as the sole cause for the supremacy of military over civilian institutions, but a conglomerate of these causes basically creates this impact, which is the supremacy of military establishment over the civilian establishment. Okay, thank you very much. This was it for today's class. Hope to see you next time with a new topic, inshallah. Have a good day. Thank you.